Broadcasting live from the Business Radio X studios in Pensacola, Florida, it's time for Pensacola Business Radio. Now, here are your Business Radio X hosts.
Hey, good morning, everybody, on this lovely Thursday afternoon, fully recovered from our election. And I have in our studio today, Mr. Kevin Miller, author, captain, man of all kinds of trades, aren't you?
Yeah, right now it's author's number one.
Right now it's author, right? That's the paying gig. So, okay, so here it is, the sequel, right? And I can really say long anticipated. I know people were waiting to find out what happens.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and I've noticed it's a lot thicker.
It is. This is an epic novel. You know, Raven 1 was 120,000 words, and this weighs in at 160,000.
Wow. So now you know you're an author when you count words, right?
Oh, yeah.
To me, that was just the thesis.
People ask me how many pages. Well, words.
And no pictures. You're graduating.
Yeah.
So cool. Okay. So tell me, I think you got into the first one, which was Raven 1, obviously still available, right?
Yes,
you still have
on
copies?
Amazon. Absolutely. It's been out a little over 2 years, doing great.
Yeah. Okay. So you wrote that one knowing, and if I remember you correctly, about halfway in, you were like, there's going to have to be a second book, right? Because there was just too many stories to tell.
You know, Raven 1 takes place in the Persian Gulf, and where I spent some time in my previous life. This one, I took Flip Wilson and Olive and Weed, and I promoted them, and now we're in the Caribbean. And there's another story to tell. It's a new story, and it's a new part of the world, and so we get into the geopolitical situation down there and what the United States military is doing and not doing. But in Declared Hostile, the United States takes the gloves off.
Yeah, which we've been known to do, haven't we?
A little. And the impetus on this one is the drug war, such as it is, that the United States has been fighting now for decades, and I'm not sure to what effect. But we talk about that situation down there, and it's a business. It's a very lucrative one at that, from what I understand. A multi-billion-dollar business. And to give you an example, just the cocaine trade alone per year is $85 billion a year. Wow. Now, to give you a sense of $85 billion, the Lockheed Martin, the number one defense prime contractor, $45 billion a year. Let's see, Google is probably $80 billion. Amazon, $100 billion. So just to give you a sense of how big that bunch of money is. And their overhead is very, very small. Just a small fraction of it is overhead.
Why is that? Just because of the primitive ways they use to transport it and get it out of here, and the labor that they use to produce it?
Yes. So it's easy to produce, and it comes in the United States through the Caribbean, but also the Pacific, through all kinds of ways, from speedboats to little airplanes, bigger airplanes. It can be smuggled in container ships. It's hard to find. And so, of course, once it gets into the United States and into Europe, that's where the demand is, and that's where the big money is spent.
So, okay, so is this, what years is this placed in?
This takes place today.
Okay, so it's very present. You can relate it to what's going on right now.
Absolutely.
Okay, and so let's tell people a little bit, for those that don't know. Obviously, we've had this conversation before, so we need to clue some people in. But give them a little background, because you're a pilot, you used to fly, so a lot of this stuff is coming from real experience.
I was a carrier aviator in the 80s and 90s, and I ended up flying the FA-18 Hornet. That was my primary aircraft, and for your listeners here in the local area, that's what the Blue Angels fly. Yeah. And so I finished my career about 10 years ago, and retired out of the Pentagon. And after I finished, one of my friends said, "You should write a book." And I really didn't think that I had one, that my career was not all that remarkable compared to.
Yeah, it was, man. Peers. You were flying planes. You were shooting things.
But I said, okay. So I finished Raven 1. It took me, many years of fits and starts. And I finally finished it. And I said, I've got something here.
Yeah.
And so I tried to market it in New York and failed. I think I'm in good company along those lines. I'm told that Margaret Mitchell was rejected 29 times for Gone with the Wind.
Yep, there you go.
But the Kindle and digital reading is like the Gutenberg press, and Amazon makes it very easy for an independent like me. And again, the New York agents that I queried, yeah, I've got this book. What do you think? And they said, well, it's not for me, or, this and that. They may not think there's not much of a market for them to get involved. But as an independent, there's quite a market. And, both books now have sold over 20,000 copies.
Yeah.
And, it's very easy to enter on Amazon. I found a local editor. Her name is Linda Wasserman. She's wonderful. And I have a publisher, a new imprint on this one, Brave Ship Books. And, so, and Jeff Edwards at Brave Ship, his motto is, we can write smart books for smart readers. We do not have to write what the New York publishing world wants us to write.
Yeah.
And it's very nice.
Well, and with the ease of access of sort of direct to consumer these days, which is, obviously why people like me and the other entrepreneurs that are in this building, why we thrive, right? Because we don't have to go through the old school ways of doing business anymore.
Absolutely. And this book right here, this, 1.1 pound book.
He's even weighted, ladies and gentlemen. That's awesome.
Well, and that's, the
sure.
Craze Base will tell you exactly how much it weighs, because it's
because you got to pay for you got the shipping,
absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
But, this book, if only one person on earth wanted it, with print on demand, it just hit enter and it prints out one book.
That's awesome.
Whereas 10 years ago, if you wanted an actual book in your hands, you had to order thousands of them and keep them in your garage. So I really feel for the authors of 10, 20 years ago, that the independents that had to do that. But 98% of my title sales are digital sales.
That's awesome. So saving the world one book at a time, right?
One book at a time.
One book at a time. So, okay. So with it being print on demand, how long does it take to get to me?
Well, you can say, rush delivery, and I think it's just a matter of hours.
Yeah.
On UPS or FedEx or whoever. But, typically, I think a week to 10 days is reasonable.
Okay, that's cool. So, because, some people would think, print on demand, it's going to be, a month or two before I get it. So, of course, you could always just be like every other consumer these days and just get it instantly, right? Mm-hmm. And do the digital download.
It's right on your Kindle. And, there's Kindle apps on phones, and that's what I find myself doing now. It's so easy.
So, and I like the fact that I like having a book in my hand. So what I've been doing lately is, and I don't have a Kindle, but I've been using my old tablet, and I even put it into a case so that I can hold it like I've got a book in my hands. But man, I'll tell you, it's awesome because I'm carrying around 30, 40 different books at a time. Right. In my ADD, that's perfect because I can read a couple chapters into each. But we've moved into such a day and age where you can get this information, you can get it into your quick. So let's give people sort of some more insights here, right? So, because this is a big book, so it's going to take you a minute, but what are some of the highlights you think as you were writing this? What made you smile? What made you go, oh yeah, I remember that.
I think I spent some time in the Caribbean in the 80s. The Caribbean
was a good era for the Caribbean. I hear
it was kind of a big deal. Nicaragua was an issue, and Panama with Noriega, and so had spent some time flying around down there, and port visits in the Caribbean islands and St. Thomas and Puerto Rico. It's just a beautiful area, and the flying there is terrific. However, there is the dark side of man, absolutely, and so there's these cartels. And just South American society. So what I learned in my research, and we learn through stories, and so the readers can get an insight into the geopolitics of the area. The cartels, we think of Colombia, and 20, 30 years ago that was the main place. They have moved that operation now over to Venezuela for a couple of reasons. One is the Colombian government.
What government?
Miraculously, they were able to get their country back and get a hold. So they moved over to friendlier Venezuela. Now, Venezuela, of course, is in the news and has had a totalitarian government for some time now. Venezuela has the top oil reserves of any country on earth by far.
Yeah, I remember a couple of years back when we were going through all this.
300 billion barrels of reserves. But the Venezuelan people are struggling right now big time. And of course, also there. is the drug trade is well ensconced. Panama is just booming, in tall buildings, and there's money all over the place. And as I write in the book, it's not from collecting fees through the canal.
Yeah.
And funds are being laundered, and so just learning about this and how other countries around the world that don't wish us well, countries in the Middle East and Russia, for a certain amount of money, if the cartels want a submarine to ship products, they can buy that.
Yeah.
And get that built for them by somebody, and there they go.
Yeah.
And it can be built relatively cheaply, and it can be just one shipment.
Yeah.
And then just sink the thing.
So it's disposable submarine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So and then this also, you've heard a lot, I guess, over the last couple of years, especially with some of the movies that have come out, but Mexico being huge in part of this cartel and drug trade. But from what I hear you saying is that a lot of it's coming from further south, right? We're just happening to either catch it in Mexico or Mexico's getting the highlight because that's where it's being found.
Well, it works its way north.
Yeah.
And it, again, through, waterborne.
Yeah.
Through all the Caribbean
the tunnels
islands,
and stuff that they had.
Through the Bahamas, through the Yucatan Peninsula, along the Pacific coast, and through Mexico.
Yeah.
And yes, you mentioned tunnels. Nowadays, there's these things called drones that everyone has.
We have one next door.
That's right. Everyone
although
has
not used for trafficking drugs.
Well, that's right. But you just put a little package of something in a drone and pop it over the fence somewhere, and it lands in another country, and
there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how much of, or did you do any of this in your time of serving and on the carriers and stuff? Were some of the missions you were called out to having to deal with some?
No.
Okay.
And that's another thing that I touch on in this book. This is a law enforcement problem. And the Coast Guard is a law enforcement agency. So, in the military, if you come across, that's a suspected vessel. We think, so, we're not going to detain it. What we would do is call the Coast Guard over, and the Coast Guard would go stop it. And the Coast Guard is allowed to do that. And they can use weapons to blow out engines, and stop the vessel, and then they arrest everyone.
Yeah.
In my novel, though, the United States takes the gloves off.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to deal with that. Again, it's a novel, it's fiction.
Sure.
But
you got a couple of heroes. They got to break the rules every once in a while, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, okay. So what's next on the promotional tour, if we can say that, even though you're staying here pretty local, but, I know you have an event Tuesday. So let's tell everybody about that.
Yeah, that is actually a private launch party that we're going to have downtown. Invitation. However, Brave Ship Books is a new imprint that I went with, and before it was Stealth Books with Jeff Edwards that I mentioned. Brave Ship is a kind of a larger entertainment company, and what I have found is that video games bring in more revenue per year than movies and music combined. And so, video gamers, the guys that develop, they're looking for storylines. And so, my novels are going to be looked at to say, okay, can so many aspects we can make a video game out of.
Yeah,
this.
because a video game these days isn't just plugging in and getting in a plane and flying a simulator anymore, right? It's got a story, it has characters, it has some role playing that goes along with it. So every video game now, you really are living a story as opposed to just flying a plane. Right.
And there'll be, we got cross-selling here. Okay, here's this video game. Who knows what they'll name it? Let's say they name it Declared Hostile. But
I think Raven One's a pretty good title myself.
And Raven One's we'll talk about that title in a minute. But someone will get the video game, but if you read the book, you're going to find little things to in the game that'll help you. So, this is all new to me, and this is very nascent. I believe this month Brave Ship is going to, kick off their marketing effort.
Yeah. How funny is it though? Like, you honestly, I know you see video games and things like that are new to you, but with all of the training that you've had and stuff, like, that's been right up your alley, right? Like, you had to do hours of flight simulation, I'm sure, as well as real pilot hours, right? But I mean, you were living the things that we're all wanting to go play in the video games with.
My career kind of transcended that. I got here 35 years ago this month, actually, to Pensacola to begin my journey. And it was good old fashioned paper manuals and studying.
And books,
and,
Books.
Yes, we actually even had simulators back then, but they had round steam gauge dials, as we called them. And then at the end of the 80s, I started flying the Hornet, and this was computer based instruction. Yeah. Whoa, And so, we look at a computer screen and you have a multiple choice question about whatever system. We pick the right one. Wrong answer. Yeah. So we go back and study until we got it right. But yes, and nowadays you can't buy, steam gauges for airplanes anymore. Everything is glass, which is, touch screen displays on modern aircraft. Absolutely. Today's generation are the digital natives that have grown up with that from day one, unlike me. Yeah. And it is so natural. And these guys are so good and so quick. Yeah. Just bombarded with information in the cockpits that I can only imagine. And they're managing it by themselves. Yeah.
So, do you think have you been inside an F-18 lately? Have you sat inside one and been like, oh, dude, it was like starting over?
Yeah, well, I'm trying to think the last time I was in a Hornet simulator. I don't know, it might have been 5-6 years ago somewhere. I can't remember. But I do feel that if I got in one today, I could fly it. Yeah. I mean, the stick and rudder.
Computers are not. It's like like the aerodynamics and all that stuff. It doesn't change, right?
And as far as all the buttons and displays, okay, how did that work again? And I think it would come back to me pretty soon. I would not be safe. And I'd be,
maybe not the green flag from the control tower.
That's right. A danger to myself and others in formation. But if I was transported into one airborne right now, I'm confident I could land it.
Yeah. Very cool. So do you miss it? Do you miss flying?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Any plans to just do some hobby stuff?
I've been flying recently.
Yeah. I want to learn, man.
I just got back into it, and through a buddy of mine at church, and right over here at the airport, and another friend that I work with, we're business colleagues. He has his own airplane, and so I get to fly it around. And people have asked me, since I retired from the Navy 11 years ago, you gonna get back into flying? Well, maybe one day, and I think that day is now here.
Good. So, and I know through Raven One and just us talking and some of the other stories that you've had, obviously there have been some not so much fun experiences in those times that you've been in those F-18s. But do you get into a plane now and sort of I always picture the Top Gun, right? After he loses his goose, and he's kind of tweaking out and he's, but does everything come flooding back to you when you sit in the cockpit?
A lot does.
Yeah.
And flying a Cessna.
Yeah.
Is
you can't be good barrel rolls and G turns in that one.
You can't do it. If you do a barrel roll or a G, you're probably not going to end well. But it comes back, and so for me, what came back last is comfort about talking on the radio.
Yeah.
And
really,
because you want to be concise and you've heard air traffic control transmissions before. So, what did that guy say? And even those of us that have some familiarity have to, say again, please. But everything else, it does come back. And it's kind of fun.
Yeah. Well, that's good. So, I can imagine that you just get a rush of, like I know, being the chef for 25 years, when I get back into a kitchen or I'm working around 5 or 6 other people, it's like a flip of a switch, man. Yeah. It all comes back. I get every emotion that I ever had. And then, 9 times out of 10, things are good and we're running smooth, but it's like a high, right? And you just hit the ground running. And, I would assume flying has got to be the same. Like you just don't forget that. What I
missed most, well, you miss a lot of things.
Sure.
I mean, to be on the flight deck and see a sunrise, but what I missed a lot was the challenge of being in a multi-plane formation and doing something, and the camaraderie with guys. Yeah. Back when you're back on deck, wherever you are, and you talk about it, and just the side-splitting humor every single day. Being around guys like that in a squadron.
Yeah, pretty cool, man. Okay, so what's next? There's another book, isn't there?
Absolutely, and I'm writing it now. We're going to go to the Western Pacific Ocean this time.
Are these all places you've been?
I've not been in the Western Pacific.
Oh, okay.
I spent my career in the Atlantic and the Mediterranean, Caribbean, the Indian Ocean.
Yeah.
lots of time.
I did not put my feet into the Pacific Ocean until about 5 years ago in my life.
Yes.
Yeah. It's quite different than it is over here.
Yes, it is. And while I have flown in the Pacific, but
Mhm.
not the Western Pacific, I didn't deploy there
Yeah.
but we're going to go there this time. And, again, a new geopolitical situation, in the South China Sea.
Mhm.
And, it's a huge area of global trade. $5 trillion of
Mhm.
trade every year goes through there in 70,000 container ships with dozens
Wow.
and dozens of containers. And there's the countries of the Pacific Rim, they're all scrambling for resources.
Sure.
And fish.
Yeah.
It
is an island. Yeah, right.
Is a huge resource. And so, from China to Vietnam to the Philippines, Japan, and all other countries, they're scrambling for fish. And the South China Sea is loaded with fish.
Mhm.
It's very rich fishing grounds. However, it's being overfished.
Yeah.
And possibly down to nothing. And these countries are scrambling for that last bit. So
They can come over here and get some of our lionfish if they want.
they can. Didn't they originate that species there?
I think
can't
so.
remember. So in the South China Sea, there are reefs and rocks and, really shoals. But countries led by China, but lots of other countries, they're all doing this, are making islands. And they're making claims that this is ours and you got to stay away, and economic claims. And it's going to lead to tension. It has led to tension. And there's been some situations over the past decades. I'm going to explore that in this next one. And this is going to be this is going to be a tough one.
Yeah.
This is, how are two big superpowers going to handle this?
Yeah. Well, do they, in your career of flying and being out on the deck, and I know a lot of times you guys you get the order, right? But did they take that time to really, I guess some of it you would probably already know, but did they take that time to really explain to you some of the, why you're doing what you're doing, or what the geopolitical, thing is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you were never just like, hey, blindly just get in this plane and go do this.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had some sense of, from our superior officers of what have you, our leadership aboard. Okay, this is why we were doing this. As I, rose in rank and responsibility, I'd have more insight from people like the Air Wing Commander and the ship's admiral. Okay, just exactly, what level of controlled violence, quite frankly, do you want me to accomplish, sir, on this mission?
Right.
Okay, we want you to do this, do not do that. Okay, good. So, and we are very disciplined, and we're going to bring just the right amount of force that the United States wants, not us. We're getting our leadership, from above, from National Command Authority in Washington.
Right. So, and I always wondered that, 'cause, in the movies, you just see the pilot gets the order and he goes out, blow stuff up, right? But I would imagine that you have to have some understanding of what's going on. But on the other side, you guys are there, you're out there, you know why you're out there. I'm assuming the gentlemen and officers are smart enough to kind of do their own research, right? And kind of see.
You're given, rules of engagement.
Sure.
You've heard that term. And, now with modern technology, I mean, you're connected all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. So now really it's just filtering what's true and what's not true, right?
Yeah. So, but not only that, there's someone, big brother, if you will, that's always watching you, or you have radio contact to probably a general somewhere who is talking on the phone to someone else in Washington, while you're flying your airplane over wherever you are. Whereas, say, in World War II, okay, guys, we want you to go over the horizon.
Right.
And if you encounter this is kind of what we want to happen.
And hopefully you'll make it back.
and then, so that they would come back hours later and, okay, well, what happened?
Right.
Well, now with satellites and there's radios and there's
watching
imagery that's transferred up and down, and you're seeing it real time. And so, the long arm of Washington, if you will, or higher headquarters can reach into your cockpit. And, there's some benefits, but there's some others to that too.
Very cool. All right. So let's let everybody know where they can find this, where they can get it. And, let's see if we can't sell you some books, man.
Declared Hostile and Raven One are both found on Amazon, exclusively on Amazon, in the digital format. for both exclusively. They can also find them at Barnes & Noble. You can ask for them, and they'll deliver it at any bookstore. Books A Million, you can find it there. But by far, it's Amazon, and it's delivered right to your door.
Very cool. Buy a drone. No, I'm just kidding. Sooner than later, right? So, do you have a website set up, or you've got Facebook or anything where people can connect with you?
Yeah, Facebook, Raven One, and also you can send me an email. It's in the back of the book. It's Kevin at kevinmillerauthor.com. By all means, feedback. And, one of our hallmarks is in aviation is, okay, you get a debrief on how you did. And so, people send me debriefs, and some people I don't even know send very nice words on Amazon. Some are other. And that's just the way it is. And so,
that's all right. You got pretty thick skin, I imagine.
Absolutely.
You can take it, right?
Aviators do. And even from what you would call an other, you can learn something. And I did with Declared Hostile. Some of the feedback I got on Raven One, I took that into account to try to write a better book, and I'm going to try to write an even better book this time.
Very cool. Well, I am excited for you, man. Congratulations.
Thanks so much.
2 down and 10 more to go,
that's
right?
Yeah, I'm going to keep writing.
I do it, man. It looks like you enjoy it a lot, and I think that's what matters.
And people are very kind, and they enjoy it, and
they're fun stories, man.
People are learning, and that's good.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, thanks for coming out and hanging out with us today.
Thank you, Keith.
Guys, you can find us at Pensacola Radio X on Twitter. You can find us at Pensacola BRX on Facebook, or you can find us at our website at pensacola.businessradiox.com. Again, Kevin Miller here with Declared Hostile. Guys can find it on Amazon. And thanks for coming in this morning and hanging out. And guys, this has been Pensacola Business Radio, where business is good and your work matters.